listening, welcome back. Now, my next guest, Peter Komalafe, as you will know, is a regular on our show, giving out brilliant financial advice to save you lots of money. But what you might not know is that a lot of Peter's advice comes from his own experience. After growing up in foster care, Peter was left homeless, sleeping on the streets and in debt, and is here now to tell us all about it and how he came out on the other side. Peter, this is, you know, I'm so often used to asking you questions like, right, Joyce has got a question about this, what can you do about it? And as I say, your advice has all come from your own story. So can you take us back to the beginning of, you know, what your childhood was like?
Yeah, I mean, so this will sound familiar to maybe children or people of my age whose parents are Nigerian and came over to the UK in the 70s. So my parents came here in the mid-70s, and they came here to work and they came here to study. And that was the priority. Make some money, get qualifications, move back home, build homes and all that kind of stuff. They had me in 1979. And I always say this as a running joke that I was maybe a surprise because my name's Peter. I've got an older brother, or had an older brother, who's also named Peter. So we had two Peters in the family, essentially. But back then, it was very, very common that Nigerian parents would literally just put an ad in the paper and then ask for a family to apply to look after their kids. So that's what happened to me.
Oh, wow.
So I was put into foster care from 3 months all the way up until I was 8 years old. And that's my foster mum right there. Unfortunately, she's no longer with us. But yeah, that's me as a baby.
Oh, look at you. And so you went into foster care, as you say, to the age of 8. What was that like?
Well, those were my foster parents. I mean, my foster dad is still here, Sid, and if he's watching this, thank you for everything you've done. But they were my parents. So I used to see my real parents every year for 2 weeks during the summer.
Yeah.
I would go up to London, go stay with them. But they were my parents, really. And they were who I knew to be my family.
Yeah. And then what happened when you were 8?
So when I was 8 years old, my parents had gone back to Nigeria at about 85 or so. They sent for me. So what I thought was going to happen was I was going to go to London for a 2-week holiday with an uncle. I ended up being put on a plane, sent over to Nigeria, which was supposed to be for 2 weeks. And me being a kid, I'm packing my bags on the 14th day saying, well, when are we going back to the airport? Only to be told, well, no, you're staying here. So that 2-week holiday ended up being 10 years pretty much.
Gosh, that must have been so hard for you to understand as a kid.
I mean, the biggest thing is the cultural shock. My foster parents were my world at that point. I understood the English way of life.
Yeah.
I found myself in Nigeria, a completely different environment, different culture, and I stuck out like a sore thumb. So when I went to school, for example, I looked like everybody else, but I spoke like this. And that meant I became a bit of a target. And it was very, very hard to fit in.
Yeah.
I was just this anomaly, if you will.
And then you came back to the UK then, when this was 10 years later. You're 18 now when you came back. And then what happened?
So I did my secondary school education out there, and I think all the way through this, my mum and dad were like, look, we need to get him back to the UK. Because the reality is I have more opportunity here because for no merit of my own, it's by happenstance. I've got a UK passport, I have opportunity, so they sent me back, and my dad gave me 50 quid. Now, I only found this out about 18 months ago, but my foster parents didn't actually know that I was in Nigeria until like 2-3 months after I had left. I just didn't come back, so they were like, we didn't know what's happened to him. So fast forward 10 years, I rock up on their doorstep completely unannounced with £50 in my pocket, and they still had the heart and the kindness to take me in.
Oh, wow. That's so nice. So they took you in and then helped you to get work and
get on my feet, get me registered with a load of stuff, get my national insurance number and everything. And then, you know, I knew that I was a burden because the day that I arrived, my foster mum was in tears because they're not wealthy at all. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah.
You know, 10 years later on for a kid just to rock up, and I'm a burden. And, you know, they set me up, but shortly after that, I managed to get into a house share, but I was so poor with money, I ended up sleeping on the streets. And that was really just the beginning of my troubles with debt. And I talk a lot about debt. Yeah,
because you got into lots of debt, didn't you? And like, as you said, you were in this flat share but lost that and ended up sleeping on the streets. What was it like being homeless?
I'm going to say this now, and it will sound a little weird. It wasn't nice. I mean, people treat you very differently when you're homeless, when you have nothing. But in the back of my mind, I was still in the UK. I didn't want to be in Nigeria in the first place. And this may sound really, really bad, and Nigerians would get, you know, really annoyed with me and offended, but that wasn't my reality. I wanted to be back here. So I was on the streets, I was homeless, it was cold, it was in October, it was horrible. But for me, I was very much all about things can only get better because I have opportunity. I had the hope that I would be able to do something better in life. And
you've certainly done that. And it was a stranger, wasn't it, who helped you to turn your life around?
Yeah, a guy called Keith. They call him Keith Teeth. And I don't know where he is right now, but he found me one evening on a Friday night, like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. It was freezing cold and pubs were closed. And he goes, like, you can't sleep here. And, like, you're worried. You don't know whether they're going to rob you, whether they're going to beat you up. And I've had instances like that. And it's like, look, you can't sleep here. You're going to freeze. Come with me. And I don't know why, but I did. And he actually put me up for 3, 4 weeks with his family. And I got a forwarding address there, was able to get on benefits and into a hostel.
Wow. And so that was then the beginning of your success story, wasn't it? Which has led to you having this brilliant book out because you then learned how to, properly handle your money and do everything. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so, I mean, look, I've been in financial services for 15 years. I started off as a cashier. And going for the first interview I was forced to. I was on benefits. If I didn't go to the interview, I was going to lose my benefits. So I thought, look, I'm in debt. I'm going to rock up to a building society. They're not going to give me a job. And I didn't want them to give me a job because if they found out I owed them money, like, I've been absconding from this for a very long time. But luckily, a woman called Jennifer Berry, she interviewed me and I tried to sabotage it. I turned it up in jeans, leather jacket and trainers. I tried my hardest to ruin it, but she saw something in me and she gave me my first job as a cashier. And through my career, going through retail to corporate banking to wealth management, I mean, Canary Wharf was life-changing for me. I do not have a university degree. I should never have ever been in a position where I could ever work on the 50th floor of One Canada Square.
Yes, you should, because you're brilliant at it.
Well, at the time, I didn't think it, but it's been a massive, massive gift. And I think part of my story is it's not just about, yes, money is important. That's where my skill set basically lies. But I think my bigger responsibility is the fact that, I come from a very, very maybe relatable background to most people. If I can do this, anybody could do this, really. And
what I love about this book as well is, I mean, it tells that story, but then you really break down stuff that people can sometimes feel embarrassed asking about. You break down all the terms and what they mean, and so people can understand when they're taking on financial commitments what it actually is going to mean for them.
Yeah, 100%. So one thing I wanted to do with the book is I wanted to create like a really basic formula. So it's called the Money Basics, right? So BASIC is an acronym. So it stands for the 5 key principles to help you become your own financial hero. And the idea behind that is you have enough control over your finances where you're able to make choices out of freedom and not out of necessity. So the 5 principles are things that I've struggled with, things that I've managed to turn around. They're very, very easy to follow. It's quite practical as well because there are exercises throughout the book. And I promise you, if you read the book and you go through all of the exercises, you will be in a better place by the time you get to page 288 of this. It's also an audio book as well. But I try to put as much of my experience and as much as what I've learned into the book as possible.
Yeah, it really is brilliant and so exciting that you've got your own book out. I saw you post a story where someone in France read it and you were nearly in tears going, wow, my book's made it to France.
It is so surreal. I mean, look, I'm very, very reflective, and gratitude is an important thing in life. And, to think about the kid who was homeless to doing this with you, it's amazing. It really, really is. And thank you.
Peter's book, The Money Basics, is out now. And if you need any advice on anything we've just been talking about, you can head over to our support pages at channel4.com/support. And of course, Peter will be back with us soon to help you with all your financial woes. But still to come on this show today, Linda Barker's here with some Mother's Day crafts. And John's in the kitchen with a lovely springtime pavlova. We'll see you after the break.